That was the wood burner in March 2008, our first small fire. Somebody in comments asked a question about how we manage on our pensions in living over here with the exchange rate, and it got me thinking about how we survived the volatile exchange rate over the last 18 years. And I've had to write notes because 18 years is a long time to remember all that. And so much has happened with the exchange rate during that time. So I've had to write some notes, and I've looked back and looked at what the exchange rate was at certain times, and then asked Chat GBT, how was that in relation to world events? What was going on? And then thought and reflected on how it was with our life, what was going on in our life at the same time. So just to start with, the exchange rate in June 85, now we weren't here then, this is a long time before we came, was 1.75 euros to the pound. So a lot of people, I think a lot of British people with money, or had spare money. In 1985, he and I were in our other marriages and didn't have that sort of money. A lot of people bought second homes over here during that time because it was just, if you'd got spare money and you were of that generation that had bought your house in the UK when houses were really relatively cheap, you had spare money, and a lot of people bought over here then. So that's what it was within June 85. By the time we decided to come over and we arrived here in July 2006, the exchange rate was 148, which was pretty good, actually. I know it wasn't 175, but it was still pretty good. And luckily, I moved because, I'm the money manager. I moved most of our money over at that point, which was really good because within 3 months it had dropped. Where are we? We were here in July, August, September, October, November. It had dropped to 117, which was when we bought this house. But I had money that I'd exchanged at around 148, which meant obviously this was affordable. It may not have been if we had been working on 1.17. So that's one of the first things that happened. Now we were and are on a fixed income, and at that time neither of us were old age pensioners, so the only pension we had was Mark's NHS pension, which was a good pension, but to keep both of us, I had a small NHS pension, very, very small, but to keep both of us, it was, it needed managing quite thoroughly. So the exchange rate gradually went down and down, and we moved in here in the November. The house was heated with oil-fired central heating. There was a big boiler in next to the garage in the utility room, burning oil, great big regulators and things on it. Looked like a ship's engine and sounded like a ship's engine room when it started up. I've got a radiator next to me. It's out of commission now. And there's another radiator over there, and radiators all around the house. And for the first 2 months we were here, and we had the heating on full time because it was winter. My family were here for Christmas, heating on full time, hot water all the time, all of the luxuries that you take for granted when you live, well, probably not now, but back then, you lived in the UK and you had the luxury of that. You didn't live in a big stone house. Well, some of you did, but you had all of that, and we just lived like that. And we had, then there was an open fire, which was decorative more than anything. It certainly didn't give out that much heat, because when you've got an open fire, most of your heat disappears up the chimney. So the family were here for Christmas, and then around about January 2007, because we couldn't see how much oil we'd got. The oil tank was in the garage, but you couldn't see into the tank, and there was no external gauge on it. There was a bamboo cane next to it that you used as a dipstick. I don't remember us using that. initially. It was like we're still dealing with, we've just moved here, getting heads around the house. But suddenly, I think in February 2007, we'd run out of oil, and it was this sort of weather, really cold, run out of oil, contact for a delivery. So we'd already had one delivery before we moved in. So we'd gone through 1,200 litres, I think the tank held, 1,200 litres of oil in 2.5 months, and contacted the oil company, and they came, I think, a day or so later, really early in the morning. I was still in my dressing gown. Refilled the tank, and at that point, oil was, I don't think I've written it down, but what have I written for the crude oil? I haven't, but it was affordable. It cost us about 500, 600 euros to fill the tank. It was affordable. But as we headed into 2007, and the crude oil price had begun to rise, and oil was becoming out of our reach because of our fixed income. So we started to think about how what are we going to do? We can't afford to keep filling the tank. We can't afford to run it and feel warm. This radiator never felt like it was at the end of the line and never really heated up. And the same for the radiator above it in the third bedroom, which was the bedroom we were sleeping in. And it's an icebox, that bedroom, and that radiator never really worked. So unless you had the heating on full pelt, these two radiators didn't really heat. So you weren't really very warm, and you were burning oil and wasting money. And we were struggling. It was a struggle, and at the same time, so the oil went up, and then there was a global financial crisis, and the exchange rate was going down, and I can't see what it had gone down to, but the exchange rate was going down. So our fixed income was getting smaller, and potential purchases were getting bigger. And I can remember that, there were certain things that I was doing to try and manage it a little bit. We would only go out in the car once a week, or only if there were 3 things to do. And I had to really be careful with shopping, and I'm not a careful shopper. Had to really be careful with shopping. So that's what happened to us during those first couple of years. It was sort of quite a struggle. And during that time, with the exchange rate going down so much, and oil going up, and whatever, a lot of people acquaintances or people that I knew of on Facebook or whatever, were leaving and going back to the UK. And I think that might have been partly to do with the fact that I didn't come here with a need to go shopping, and I talked about that in a previous video. I didn't come here to need the retail therapy side of things. That didn't bother me. I wasn't, that doesn't appeal to me. Rarely does that appeal to me. And he's the retail therapist, not me. So I think a lot of people went back because they couldn't do what they would normally do. They couldn't. I'm talking about some women. I know not all women are like this, but couldn't buy their perfume, couldn't buy their jewelry, couldn't have their hair done. All of those things they needed to rein in, and I don't think that worked for many people. A lot of people went back. We didn't. We stuck it out. And in late 2007, to pile it on, late 2007, Sarkozy was in power, and he decided that we British people would no longer be entitled to the health cover that had been reciprocated between the two countries. So people living in England get health cover, people living in France get it. So it was a reciprocated arrangement, and he decided that was no longer on the cards, and that we would need to have health insurance. So we started trying to sort that out, and made an appointment with the insurance company down in Memorion, or tried to make an appointment with the insurance company down in the Memorion. And I can remember standing in the garage. This is where all this happened. I remember we were standing in the garage. I'm sure I was talking about going to have to sort this out, got to find a way of getting the, an appointment. And the post came, and Mark picked up the post and came in, and his mum had sent him, I think she sent him £3,000 that she'd inherited from a sort of very distant relative, and she just sent him a check for £3,000. It was like amazing, because it made such a big difference, because it meant that we could buy the wood burner. It meant that we could buy ourselves a wood burner and heat the house differently to how we heat it now. So it was, the timing of it couldn't have been better. But yeah, I just remember being in the garage when that happened. And even now, quite often, I'll say to him, have you checked the post? There might be a check. I mean, Mum's dead now, but you never know. So that happened. And then so we couldn't get the insurance agent to give us an appointment. I don't know what he was doing, but within a few months it had changed hands. So he was just pissing around, and we weren't ever getting an appointment with him, so we weren't ever able to get anything going. And actually, during that pissing around stage, the decision by Sarkozy was reversed by French Parliament in early 2008, so we could keep our reciprocal health cover, which made a big difference, because we would have, along with this very reduced income, we were going to have to find money to pay for health insurance. And we're not young, Mark was in his 60s, I was in my late 50s, so it's not ideal to be taking out health insurance at that age. So that was good, that was great. So we stopped using the central heating. We actually sold the boiler. It was a massive boiler. We sold that. We sold the oil tank, and as you may know, the only form of heating that we have now is the wood burner. I've got a radiator behind me that's not on because the fires are light, but on cold days, if the fire's not alight or it's gone out, I've got a radiator behind me I can switch on. It's plugged in. It's a oil-filled radiator. Mark's got one on in his room because he's got no heating through there. We have no heating upstairs, although this winter is our first winter with a heated towel rail up there, which is lovely, in the bathroom. But otherwise there's no heat. So that was that. So over the years, I can remember now having been asked the question that, the struggle during that time, and, sort of oil carried on going up, various world crises caused issues with the exchange rate. And then, it began to recover, I think. It says here, what have I looked at? So by December 2015, the pound had strengthened up to 136, and then along came the Brexit vote in 2016. And after that, it looked like a roller coaster for a long time, and it still does. It still doesn't look, it's not stable. It's never very stable. And December just gone, it was 121 to the pound, because you've had the pandemic as well. So you had Brexit, then the pandemic. So it's 121 to the pound. I'm wondering what Inauguration Day and the Trump regime will do, what impact that will have, but I don't care. In 2014, Mark started to receive his old age pension. It made massive difference to us, a massive difference. It's a good lump of money to have extra on top of your original pension. And then we waited another 7 years, and then I started to get mine. And so, as you can imagine, as we now have his NHS pension, the 2 old age pensions, it's not uncomfortable now. We feel really comfortable. I don't check the exchange rate all the time. I used to be checking it at least once a week before, it really mattered. I had to work it out and think about, do I transfer money or don't I? And I mean, I don't have to think that now. We don't really have a lot of money in the UK. I leave some in there to pay for things that I buy online from the UK, but there isn't money in the UK any longer. All of the money comes through to the French account, and I don't look at the exchange rate, and we are very, very happily relaxing. I was going to say we're very comfortable. I think we are actually, relative maybe to some people, we are quite comfortable, very lucky, as I keep saying. So that's how we survived. And I think we just held our breath for a couple of years, which is so long ago now. This is 2000, 2008. Such a long time ago. I'd sort of, it's gone into the past. But so thanks for that question. I'm just going to have a look and see who asked it. Kelsey Kennedy. So thanks for the question. There's my answer. Okay, thanks. Have a good day. I've just noticed that somebody's written above that, why do people put this kind of video on YouTube? It's like a total stranger talking to you on the bus. Who cares? Well, quite a lot of people do, you might notice. And I don't care. I wouldn't talk to you on the bus. I like doing this. Okay, thanks. Bye.